break it all down. Plus, drama on Capitol Hill, Republican control of Congress, the future of House Speaker Mike Johnson, and the Donald Trump election certification all hang in the balance as the 119th Congress meets tomorrow for organizational session. We've got firebrand Congresswoman Lauren Boebert and Republican lawmakers among the holdouts for the Trump-endorsed House Speaker. All here on the Matt Gaetz Show tonight. Let's do this. We're shaking up Washington, D.C. We're breaking the fever.
You ever watch this guy on television? Like a machine. He's great. Matt Gaetz.
In moments, we will bring you updates on the terrorism concerns gripping America in the new year. But first, our lead story is on Capitol Hill tonight, where tomorrow, the 119th Congress convenes. With Trump's victory and Republican wins in the House and Senate, MAGA Nation is more excited than the crowd of the Taylor Swift Eras Tour. But is all that joy and brat premature? As House Speaker Mike Johnson prepares for his election, know that that must be the first order of business. Here's the process. First, the clerk of the House calls the roll to elect the Speaker. Then the dean, who is the longest-serving member of the House, swears in the Speaker. Then, and only then, the Speaker will swear in the rest of the representatives to certify the Electoral College victory of President Trump on January 6th. So, the holdouts against current House Speaker Mike Johnson don't have time on their side if they don't want to see a delay in the certification of Trump's Electoral College win. Now, President Trump and Elon Musk have also become major factors in the Speaker's battle, with Trump endorsing Johnson just days ago. Now, this is noteworthy because Trump made no similar effort to pressure lawmakers to vote for former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. I had a bit of a different view on that matter myself. So will the Trump bump for Mike Johnson be enough for the guy who calls himself MAGA Mike? My sources tell me that Trump wants Johnson in the role to preserve the most durable, stable majority possible. Trump sees Johnson as a means to that outcome. Upon us is this great era of restoration for all Americans. I think about the hope that lights up now in otherwise very dark places. The January 6th defendants, some of whom never intended to break the law, but were subjected to a two-tier justice system that tortured and abused patriotic Americans. They now have hope. I think of the brave patriots from our military. Some are currently serving. They are sick and tired of the pronoun training and the DEI and the socialism lectures. They want training on how to vanquish any foe. Some were driven out of the military, at least 8,600, and they deserve to be restored with their full rank and back pay. An experimental vaccine should never be the basis to deprive someone of their patriotic expression of military service. Our overworked and underappreciated Border Patrol agents also know that help is on the way. Trump uniquely inspires so many Americans precisely because they see how he endures the seemingly unendurable. And the winning keeps on happening despite the phony scandals and the Steele dossier, the Russia hoax, the Ukraine sequel to the Russia hoax, the E. Jean Carroll hoax, the Russian bounties hoax. Literally, there were two Russia hoaxes. You had the first Russia hoax, and then you had the Russian bounties hoax. All of this was before they took the gloves off, of course. Congressional Democrats wanted to impeach Trump over Russia. When they did impeach him over Ukraine thereafter, they then didn't get enough of it. They impeached him over January 6th, a riot that Trump didn't even attend. Think about that. Trump didn't attend, but the FBI did. The FBI had 26 confidential human sources at the Capitol on January 6th. This is publicly reported. They've admitted it, yet they impeached Trump and they unleashed the FBI to harass MAGA grandmothers. Impeachments are supposed to be like what they said about lightning strikes, infrequent, but if you get hit by one, it should only be the one. Two impeachments could not unclench the bond between Trump and his voters. He was always going to win the 2024 nomination. I knew it, and I said so. But throughout it all, you saw Trump repeatedly falsely accused of breaking norms. Take a listen.
And there are no rules. There were norms. The norms have gone out the window since 2016.
Which is that Trump violates all sorts of norms.
He wants to rule without any checks and balances, without any norms, without any guardrails.
The norms have been destroyed by Trump.
This breaking down of the international and national norms.
There are no norms or principles governing anything anymore under the Trump and Mitch McConnell regime.
Thank goodness we have Hillary to remind us the norms. And man, could you imagine if Joe Biden could still even deliver a sentence like that? But indeed, it was the left that broke the norms. In the courtrooms of Fulton County and in Manhattan, partisan Democrats with prosecutorial powers thought they were delivering the final blow against Trump, but ultimately it backfired. They unleashed the ultimate verdict from the American people. Total and complete victory for Trump and Republicans in the House and Senate. But all of this hangs in the balance as the Congress organizes tomorrow. You may remember 2 years ago, the election of House Speaker was a bit dramatic, and I had something to do with it.
Gaetz.
Donald John Trump.
Trump. Gallagher.
That was fun, but there's a key difference. 2 years ago, the work that Republicans were eager to get to was extending the debt limit and, sadly, negotiating with President Biden and Senator Schumer. Republican voters didn't give a rip about these things. Kevin McCarthy and his team of Republican sellouts had all of the patience of a dog waiting to be let out of a car when creating a permission structure for the very spending that drove inflation to crippling levels. I knew then that we should feel no rush to get to Joe Biden's agenda, even if Kevin McCarthy and other sellout Republicans were in a push to taste their newly acquired power. Now, tomorrow on January 3rd, the Republican House must again elect a speaker. Speaker Mike Johnson is seeking another term. He's let down many conservatives by reversing his position on omnibus spending bills, FISA surveillance, and funding for Ukraine. He used to be against all of these things, but now he's for them. But a delay on electing a speaker doesn't just delay Biden or Harris. They lost, thank goodness. It would delay Trump this time. Trump must have his election certified on January 6th. It is the poetic, triumphant return, like when Caesar returned to Rome after conquering Gaul. So will we have speaker drama again? We are hearing that there are 5 holdouts to the Johnson speakership: Representatives Thomas Massie, Chip Roy, Victoria Spartz, Andy Harris, and Andy Biggs. These are all terrific members of Congress, all friends of mine, and we will have Congressman Massie and Congresswoman Spartz here with us on this program in moments. But first, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert occupies a very unique position in the House. She's one of President Trump's strongest allies, and indeed, she is a good friend and political ally of Speaker Mike Johnson. Now, Boebert notably did not join fellow House conservatives Thomas Massie and Chip Roy and Andy Biggs in supporting Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene's effort to oust Johnson last Congress. So if you're looking for the concentric circles to overlap between Trump world and Johnson world, that's Lauren Boebert. Last Congress, those who rightfully stood against former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy were attacked verbally. I was even attacked physically. We were threatened with losing committee assignments, having our legislation blackholed, loss of donors and donations, and even primary challenges. And through it all, Representative Lauren Boebert stood by my side, and she stood by the people of Colorado and the American people. She demanded changes to Congress's rules, which, if implemented, would actually save the People's House from the corrupt special interests who run the place. Now, these include single subject bills, term limits, open amendments to cut spending, and actually time to read the bills. McCarthy went back on all of these promises, and Speaker Johnson hasn't delivered on them yet either. Right now, my sources are telling me that Speaker Johnson is working the phones, hearing out the members, wrangling dissidents, and trying to build a governing coalition with a very slim majority. Representative Lauren Boebert is a leader within the House Freedom Caucus. She's co-chair of the Second Amendment Caucus. Nobody knows the thinking of House conservatives better. She is our firebrand of the day. Congresswoman Lauren Boebert joins us now. Congresswoman Boebert, let's start with your policy goals. Everyone is excited. You've got Trump coming back, Republican control of Congress. What's the most pressing thing you believe the 119th Congress needs to address with a first bill?
Well, first of all, we need to certify the election and get President Trump inaugurated. But in the meantime, we need to work on securing the border. These are promises that President Trump made. There was a mandate given by the American people. And so securing the border comes first before anything else. This mandate to build the wall and deport them all. And next up, or paired with that, needs to be American energy dominance. Get our oil and gas workers back to the fields, start bringing down the cost of energy, which will have a positive impact on supply chain and our economy for all Americans. And we need to understand that this will be tackled on reconciliation, but maybe we still just start doing our job and passing these bills before we get to the reconciliation process.
It would be nice to see some single subject bills. I know that's something you and I have both been fighting for, but you're right. To get to the presidential certification, it requires election of a Speaker of the House. Tell me where things are. Bring our viewers into the room. What is going on with the race for House Speaker and where Mike Johnson currently stands?
Yes, well, Matt, you know all about the negotiations that take place in a speaker's race. And right now, President Trump has endorsed Speaker Mike Johnson to be our next speaker for the 119th Congress. But there are some folks who have concerns and have not committed to vote for Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House. I believe that there is one thing that can secure Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House for the 119th, and that is by bringing us together and selecting Chip Roy to be the chairman of the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee is the Speaker's committee, and this is how we get a conservative voice who is focused on policy at the table as a guarantee in all of these important policy discussions. And also, if you think about it, if there are moderates who are upset that Chip Roy could be the Rules chairman, well, also he's a voice in the Freedom Caucus who can tame some of us who are kind of more uneasy when it comes to these policy discussions. He's in the room on a regular basis having these conversations, and I do believe that Mike Johnson coming out and committing to Chip Roy being the chairman of the Rules Committee would secure the vote on the first round with no significant battle afterwards.
Wow, that's big news, Congresswoman Boebert. We're hearing that there are as many as 5 holdouts right now, including many of your friends and mine. Are you saying that that is the price to get Mike Johnson the gavel back, making Chip Roy of Texas a known fiscal hawk, a known border hawk, a leader within the House Freedom Caucus, the leader of the all-important House Rules Committee?
I do believe that that is how you get enough of the votes to reach 218 and secure the speakership for Mike Johnson by selecting Chip Roy as the Rules chairman. This is a man who understands policy, who is not afraid of the work, and he would be a strong conservative voice and a fiscal hawk for the 119th Congress. And he understands that President Trump's policies must be delivered.
One of the things that the holdouts share with us is that there's a trust deficit with Mike Johnson, that many of us know he believes in many of the things we believe in, but when push comes to shove, he has a challenge getting the House of Representatives there. Do you trust Mike Johnson?
I sure hope that I can, but more than that, the American people trust President Trump. President Trump has endorsed Mike Johnson. President Trump, again, has been given a mandate by the American people. And I don't believe that this is like it was in 2021, where we can waste days having this fight within the House of Representatives. We need a Speaker of the House to get to work and deliver on these single subject bills that you and I and others have fought for in the past, and begin to get those policies in place for President Trump to be ready to sign into law on January 20th and then the following days thereafter. Now, Mike Johnson did have a tough run. I get it. There were times he only had a 1-seat majority. And would we have done things differently? certainly. But I think that this is a new Congress, and we have a leader in President Trump, and that is the man that we need leading all of this. So as long as our speaker is following what President Trump is saying, and our House is coming together in that unified message and sending single subject bills over the Senate, then I believe that that will be enough to deliver the promises that President Trump made to America.
One reason you're a key player in the House and a key ally of Speaker Johnson is that you both share a vision for American energy dominance. This is something President Trump has indicated central to his agenda to bring down prices. I know we're expecting a lot of administrative, executive action from the Trump administration on the deregulation front, but do you think legislation is going to be necessary to really achieve that American energy dominance that you and President Trump have been fighting for?
Absolutely. And, last year we had passed H.R. 1, which was an amazing energy bill. And this was something that we can have energy security, energy independence, and energy dominance. And that is something that we need to do once again. I don't believe that President Trump wants to rely solely on executive orders. He wants to work through the legislative process. And so we need to be delivering those bills for this energy independence. I serve a state, Colorado, where we have been regulated into poverty through bad energy policies. I'm tired of relying on our adversaries for our energy. It's time that we create American jobs with the most resourceful American energy, because we do it more responsibly than anyone in the world. And this is something that we have got to put as a priority in order to get our economy strong once again and begin to lower inflation. It's still not easy to buy groceries for your average household. And this is one way that we can correct that. And so Speaker Mike Johnson does have energy as a priority, as well as securing the borders and so many other things.
Gosh, it sounds like there's a lot going to be happening in Congress in January. You've got the Trump tax cuts that are expiring. You've got the budget reconciliation process with the Senate. You've described how that plays out. And then it's energy. It's all of the economic growth legislation that you're looking for. With such a small majority, is the House of Representatives up to the challenge to get these bills to President Trump's desk, in your opinion?
Well, I believe it's up to the American people to continue to communicate to their representatives to let them know that we have got to be unified around President Trump's agenda. Because, Matt, we have worked with a lot of the folks who go to folks like Elon Musk or Vivek Ramaswamy and say, oh, we're so grateful for Doge. And in the same breath, they're saying, save us from ourselves. Because many of our colleagues have been voting for the reckless spending here in Washington, D.C., or the unauthorized programs. Rather than doing the work and reauthorizing them, they just say, you know what, it's expired, but we're going to continue to go ahead and fund that. And so we have got to put pressure on elected members of Congress to actually do the work that they campaign and say that they're going to do. We've got to govern as we campaign. We all just won our elections. It's time to deliver for the American people, no matter how slim the majority is. But I'm also very confident in President Trump's cabinet picks, and this administration is already looking strong and promising. We have Tom Homan as border czar. We have Stephen Miller coming in for domestic policy. Russ Vought, OMB, who's also brought alongside of him former member of Congress Dan Bishop to be his deputy chief. And it is so strong and so promising that we'll be able to deliver this for all Americans.
Well, if you're watching, catch the signal in what the Congresswoman has said. This is not a set it and forget it majority. This is not a majority that you can turn to Ron Popeil and hope that it will just cook out great outcomes. There's going to be the constant attending to this majority that requires people being engaged and involved. I know you do a great job of that, Congresswoman. I'll let you out of here. One final question, though. I need your prediction. How many rounds of balloting for the Speaker's race tomorrow for Mike Johnson? Does he get it in the first wave, or do you think there might be multiple rounds of balloting?
Matt Gaetz and the American people, I feel very confident that there could only be one round if Chip Roy is made the Rules Chair for the 119th Congress. This is a very important committee, and I believe this is what secures Mike Johnson's speakership. So I'm hoping for a one and done, but there are definitely some wrongs that need to be made right, and I think this is one promising way to get back on track to ensure that we are going to deliver on everything that we campaigned on.
Well, I know.
And nothing happens here without force.
That's right. And I know that you will be there to apply that force and apply that pressure. I know so many Americans are comforted that you are standing in the breach for the America First agenda, for President Trump, and for all of the hopes that we have for the upcoming year. Thanks so much, Congresswoman.
Thanks, Matt.
Coming up after the break, Representative Thomas Massie will give us his take on why he's not voting for Mike Johnson as House Speaker and what he thinks should be the direction of the 119th Congress. He'll join us in just moments. Welcome back. Opposition to the Mike Johnson speakership continues to persist as some reports indicate now that there are up to 5 no votes on Mike Johnson's election as House Speaker tomorrow. A lot of the resistance arises from concerns over congressional spending, particularly as we see billions of U.S. tax dollars being sent to Ukraine to protect their borders as our own border continues to leak like a sieve. Former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich states that those against Johnson's speakership are contrarians, accusing the opposition of throwing temper tantrums and being unprepared for the hard work of governing and forcing change. Speaker Gingrich seems to think that forcing a change in spending patterns is like rocket science. So I thought it would be appropriate to bring an MIT-level scientist on the program, one of the key no votes against Mike Johnson's battle for the gavel. Please welcome to the show my good friend, a great conservative, Thomas Massie of Kentucky. Thomas, thanks for coming on. Tell us what's going on in the speaker's race as you join me now.
Well, first of all, I take that term contrarian as a term of endearment here in the swamp. Who wants to be going along with what's going along here? Matt, I don't know. I don't know if Mike Johnson makes it tomorrow. I am the one hell no. You know, they say there's up to 5 or 6 who may be voting no. You can count on me to be a no. And that I feel very justified in this. Mike Johnson sold us out over the last year. You know, you served with him like I did on the Judiciary Committee, where he was once for stopping the unconstitutional spying on Americans by the FBI and other agencies. But when he became Speaker, he decided to be the deciding vote to reauthorize that spy program without requiring a warrant. He architected the spending bill so that there was basically no way to pass a spending bill without sending at least $60 billion to Ukraine. And then he stopped work on the individual bills and did a giant omnibus. When Marjorie and I called the question on him, he worked with Democrats to remain Speaker. And so that, and finally, let's add the debacle that happened here right before Christmas, where Mike went off and wrote a 1,500-page bill with the Democrats. I don't even know if he consulted Donald Trump on this, because all of us were surprised. Even the leadership here was surprised when Mike rolled that stinker out. He lacks the situational awareness to know what can pass in the House and what can't. And he promised us we wouldn't get a Christmas omnibus bill, but there he wrote one and thought we would just, you know, eat it up when he put it there on the platter for us at Christmas. Of course, it failed miserably. And then Trump wanted a debt limit increase. But Mike, instead of telling Trump, listen, I don't think I can get that done, he put that stinker on the floor without doing the hard work of saying, here's what we're going to do to cut spending in exchange for that debt limit increase. He didn't do that. But that's because he couldn't tell Trump, listen, I can't get this done. So even if Mike Johnson's goal is to carry all the water for Donald Trump, his bucket leaks and he's going to trip and spill it.
Thomas, that is a lot of the bad we see in Congress. Let's test our own situational awareness here. With the majorities we have in the House and Senate, what do you think is possible? What is the important work you would like to see Congress do during this 2-year term, given the givens that we all face?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd like to see the mandate that Trump won in this election pass, his agenda. Let's secure the border. Let's end the endless wars. By the way, that was on his list the first time, but we had Paul Ryan who wouldn't help him with those things. You and I had a bill here in the House, and I'm going to reintroduce it. Trump is in favor of it. Let's end the Department of Education. We don't need a national school board. We've got 50 school boards in 50 states, and then and every county has one. So get rid of the Department of Education. That's something that Jimmy Carter created, not his best legacy, frankly. That could go on. You served with me on Judiciary and also on the Weaponization Committee. Look, we uncovered so many things, and guess what? We're still funding them. Of course the FBI and those guys are going to do this. We're sending grants out to universities and NGOs so that they can perfect the art of spying on Americans. We funded all that in a CR just recently.
But Thomas,
let's get in there and defund it.
Hold on, let's be honest with the viewers here, because we funded those things because there are Republican champions for those programs. Like Dave Joyce is your Republican lead writing the Homeland Security budget, and he is in favor of CISA, which advanced a lot of the censorship. So, in a world where if you lose 1 or 2 or 3 Republicans passing a bill's in jeopardy, how do you get backbone, regardless of who the speaker is, for the Republican conference to go down this very wise path you've laid out?
Well, when it comes to funding, I think a lot of this stuff is going to be in one bill called reconciliation. And I just don't think those people are going to get in front of that train. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Let me throw this out there, too. Let's get rid of the time change twice a year. I think President Trump's been out for that. That costs nothing, right? I don't know. There's probably some rhino here in Congress is taking money from the time change lobby. I don't know if it's Seiko or Timex or who that funds that.
Yeah, big clock is very difficult to beat if you go up against that. We just had Lauren Boebert on the program. She made some news and said that she believed making Chip Roy of Texas, a fellow fiscal hawk, a fellow border hawk, the chairman of the Rules Committee, that would seal the deal. That's the one big ask for a lot of these House conservatives to vote for Mike Johnson. You serve on the Rules Committee. You have with Chip Roy. Would he make a good chairman of the Rules Committee?
Yeah, he'd be a great chairman. But here's the problem. I'm afraid Mike Johnson is going to do what he loved to do for the last year, and that is suspend the rules, bypass the Rules Committee, and pass bills with Democrats on the floor, with a majority of Democrats. We saw him do that time and time again. So I would like to see some assurance that the rules that we make in the Rules Committee are actually going to be followed. And if Chip's on that, chairman of that committee, that would be great. I've served on there with him and Ralph Norman. Those are part of the concessions that you got when Kevin McCarthy became Speaker, is we got 3 people on the Rules Committee and an ability to sort of get amendments in there, force votes that people didn't want to have to vote on. Chip would be great.
I think that's what really confuses a lot of Americans about the machinations of Congress. They assume that ideas are presented and then voted on, but there is this super powerful policy committee that gets to vet what is even put up for a vote or considered. And you're right, under Kevin McCarthy's time as Speaker, we fought hard to get you and Chip Roy, Ralph Norman, good conservatives there, but we were often disappointed that those rules we fought for were waived whenever people wanted to partner up with Democrats. Is there any backstop so that you don't have Democrats running the House of Representatives elected where Republicans were elected to run the place?
I'm worried Mike Johnson is going to follow the beaten path that he has over there to Hakeem Jeffries. Hakeem bailed him out right before Christmas. Every Democrat voted for that deal that Johnson put on the floor. I'm afraid that's going to be hard to stop. And that is why I'm not for Mike Johnson. Here's something I've heard too, Matt.
Sure.
People have said, oh, just elect him now and let's certify the election. Let's do the inauguration. And then you can just chuck him overboard. My concern is at that point, he goes to Hakeem Jeffries or just a few Democrats and says, hey, I need your help. And he survives that. And then we're stuck with him forever.
This was an argument made to me, and so I'll make it to you in arguendo, as they say. But are you worried about the converse happening? If you got a small group of Republicans to stand against Johnson, are you worried that maybe the pro-impeachment Republicans like Brian Fitzpatrick and David Valadao might join with Democrats to elect a Democrat speaker?
There's always a risk at that, but at that point, they might as well become Democrats if they're going to do something like that. There are a few of our colleagues that probably should do that.
Well, we don't want him to do that now. We got a slim majority, Thomas. We got to keep him. We got to keep him in the boat. If Chip Roy were asked to serve as chairman of the Rules Committee, would that be enough to get your vote for Mike Johnson?
Oh, no. You can pull all my fingernails out. You can shove bamboo up in them. You can start cutting off my fingers. I am not voting for Mike Johnson tomorrow. And you can take that to the bank. You know that,
Who are you voting for,
Matt.
Thomas? Who are you voting for?
I will vote for a sitting member of Congress who could do the job, and that's all I'm going to say.
Do you have that person in your mind already?
I do.
Well, folks, we'll have to wait for tomorrow to see the moves of the great Thomas Massey. Thomas, however it goes tomorrow, I appreciate that you actually keep the focus on the Constitution and on the risks to this country that could bring her down, and that indeed is the way we spend money. I hope you're able to get him in a better posture. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thanks, Matt.
Appreciate it. So terror and tragedy have struck New Orleans and Las Vegas. Are these coordinated acts of terror, activated sleeper cells in America, or just unrelated explosions of hate against our nation during the holiday season? I've got intelligence operations experts Tony Shaffer and Sam Faddis joining us in moments. Be right back after the break. Welcome back. Biden's DOD and VA have been hot on stamping out the scourge of white supremacy allegedly prevalent among our military and veterans, going so far as to having the Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin order a stand down for our military in February of 2021 to address homegrown extremism. Can someone check with General Mark Milley and ask how much of his white rage was triggered when he saw the picture of the homegrown extremist responsible for the tragedy in New Orleans yesterday? The perpetrator of the New Year's Eve deadly attack in New Orleans has been identified as Texas-born U.S. Army veteran Shamsuddin Jabbar, who allegedly posted videos on his social media on his way to the New Orleans attack. President Biden addressed Americans yesterday, stating the New Orleans attack was inspired by ISIS. As many as 14 people are reportedly dead after Jabbar was driving a pickup truck and flying an ISIS flag. He rammed through innocent patrons enjoying holiday festivities. The truck was rented on the Airbnb-style app for cars known as Turo. Meanwhile, the Cybertruck explosion outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas was also rented on Turo. The suspect reportedly died immediately. That Cybertruck was packed with fireworks and gas tanks, camping fuel, all of which officials believe was connected to a detonation system. Local Denver station Denver 7 reported that their sources told them that both the New Orleans terrorist and the Vegas attacker served at Fort Bragg. While authorities continue to investigate whether these two attacks are connected, we've decided to invite onto the show intelligence experts to share their thoughts and perspectives on what happened and where this investigation goes next. So joining us now, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and DoD Intel operative Tony Shaffer, who is currently president at the London Center of Policy Research, and Sam Faddis, a retired CIA operations officer who is the senior editor of And magazine. Tony and Sam, thanks so much for joining. Tony, I want to start with you. What is your assessment of what happened in New Orleans and Las Vegas?
Well, first thing is these people got in under the radar. The military, the Army specifically, does have insider threat mechanisms, personnel, and systems to detect it. Well, they didn't get detected because of your point. They've been on this internal witch hunt looking for white supremacy since Lloyd Austin came in. And several organizations have refuted any such existence of white supremacy being a primary threat to national security. The insider threat program is designed to actually find people like Jabbar and Matthew Liversberger, I think that's his name, I may have mispronounced it, and instead of actually looking for individuals who may have the interest or capacity to do something, we've missed it. So that's the first thing we have to look at. Why have we invested these resources and why did they miss it? Secondly, these people were both trained, as you point out, Matt, at Fort Bragg. Well, that's a nexus that we should be looking at because apparently a lot of folks go there for training. Some of that training is being now used for evil and domestic terror. These things cannot be ignored. What has been happening is we have a system, the federal system, with Christopher Wray, with Secretary Mayorkas at DHS, who has been designed to actually just wear us down, to accept failure as the common the norm in our country. We can't afford this. So the continued ignoring of the facts as they are, that is to say, we have individuals who've been radicalized, who have been showing signs of radicalization. This goes back to Nidal Hassan, Major Hassan, back in 2009. It's not gone away. Instead, it's been diverted for political reasons to ignore specific threats now we know exist and actually acted over the past couple of days.
It's such a great point that we talk about the harm that some of the focus, like the snipe hunt on white supremacy causes,
Exactly.
but reality is there's an opportunity cost there because you're not then pursuing the true insider threats that can emerge.
Absolutely.
I want to go to Sam Faddis now. Sam, Telegram is a communications platform used all over the world to plan and coordinate a lot of stuff, sometimes nefarious stuff. But I noticed a few days prior to the attack, a message was posted to Telegram from a pro-ISIS outlet stating, quote, "The time has come to take out the swords from their sheaths and to hamstring the horses in their places that Allah loves and is pleased with." The post continued, quote, "They are preparing for the feast of their polytheism, so turn their feast into mourning and their joy into a calamity." Right now, we've got Americans gearing up for inauguration, the Super Bowl, which will take place in New Orleans, and attacks like this certainly impact the psyche of everyone involved. Should Americans be concerned? Sam Faddis.
Yeah, 100% they should be concerned. Is that a call for terrorist attacks in the United States and in the West generally? Yes, that's exactly what that is. There are similar calls all day, every day on Telegram and a whole host of other channels, and a stack of other indications that we should not only be concerned now, but should have been concerned, 4 years ago when Joe Biden came into office. We have ignored all of those, right? We discovered not too long ago that there was a human smuggling ring connected to ISIS that had brought at least 400 people onto our soil. So, and we couldn't figure out where they all were. Now, in the aftermath of that, you would figure the red lights go off and the sirens sound and everything changes. As you and I and Tony both know, all know, nobody did anything. We know precisely what's coming, and yet we sit and wait for it to happen.
And I worry about some of the networks that support this activity. I took note that the mosque, where the New Orleans attacker may have attended worship in Houston, they put a post on X asking their members of their congregation not to speak to the media, and oddly, to direct all media inquiries to CARE, the Council of American and Islamic Relations. This struck me as very bizarre. Sam Faddis, who is CARE, and is their involvement in these type of activities typical?
Yeah, their involvement in these kind of activities is typical. They are a radical Islamic organization, long since established, that they're connected to all kinds of wonderful people like Hamas that carried out the attacks in Israel. Look, Afia Siddiqui is an example, an Al-Qaeda operative that when I was still on duty, we took off the street because she was planning biological weapons attacks in New York. I don't mean aspirational. She was casing targets in New York to stage biological weapons attacks. She's in prison. CARE thinks that she's oppressed and they want her released onto the street. So that's the organization that this mosque is saying that everybody should talk to. They are radical and they're in bed with terrorists.
Wow. I want to go back to you, Tony. There's a lot of interest in this incoming administration. There's a belief that if you get the right folks at the Pentagon, throughout the intelligence community, that we're going to get past the politics, past the virtue signaling, and actually to the type of investigative work and really force resilience work that you were talking about earlier in our discussion. If you're Pete Hegseth, if you're the Secretary of the Army coming in, what is it that you look to try to get the best outcomes the quickest on keeping our force and our people safe?
Well, full disclosure, I know Pete. Pete and I are friends, and I believe he's the right man for the job. And what Pete's going to have to do is get control of the Leviathan that is the Pentagon bureaucracy. You do that through personnel. Matt, from your experience, personnel are policy. Who you pick will be the people who execute that, and they have to do it effectively. If I were President Trump, I would get Pete confirmed and then ask the Senate to go on, essentially go into recess so he can make some appointments to get people in immediately. Not wait around, not go through all the confirmation, but put some people in there like a beachhead and start working immediately. Matt, we have seen Mayorkas, Secretary Mayorkas and Director Wray refuse to go to Congress to testify to what they know is going on right now. I think they know exactly what's going on. There's a pattern developing. We see it. Sam just talked about some of the things which have been ignored. We can't ignore it. I think you're going to see more of this chaos between now and the 20th of January, so that President Trump has to look at this holistically. How do we gain as much control, effective control, with people who are competent and able to execute policy in such a way to protect the American people without waiting for the formal process to proceed? I don't think we can wait that long. And so I do believe Pete Hegseth will roll in. I think he's got a good idea of what has to be done immediately to start actually using the processes and procedures which exist within the Pentagon. There are good people still there. I talk to them every day. We have to get them to the top so they can lead the effort effectively to start doing the necessary steps to purge the Pentagon of woke and the dangers, the material causes of failure that have become the hallmark of the Biden administration.
Personnel is policy, none better than our good friend Pete Hegseth. We hope he's rapidly confirmed. Real quick before we go, Sam Faddis, those CIA operatives who are overseas right now, when you get an event like this that happens in the United States, what are the things they're looking for? What are the type of reports they're writing back into the intelligence community to try to really sharpen focus on this threat?
Well, what they should be looking at is, in particular, connections to organizations abroad. In other words, connections to ISIS outside the country. But look, let's keep something in mind. My job as an intel officer was not primarily to tell you after the bomb went off who did it. That's nice, but if I've done that, I failed. My job was to tell you that the bomb was going to go off so you could stop it from going off in the first place. That's where the failure is in the intelligence community. We're supposed to be a step ahead, not running behind.
Well, we hope we get back ahead with the incoming team and the incoming administration. Thanks so much for breaking this all down for us. Tony Schaefer, Sam Faddis, two of the smartest guys I know.
Thanks, Matt.
And coming up, we've got Representative Victoria Spartz of Indiana joining us with her perspective on what dramatic actions need to be taking place in the 119th Congress to stop the Titanic-sized collision America appears to be on with its spending frenzy and debt obligations. More on this with Victoria Spartz straight ahead. Congresswoman Victoria Spartz of Indiana is one of the last remaining fiscal hawks on Capitol Hill. The fiscal hawk has actually become more of an endangered species in Washington than the Florida panther is in the swamps of my home state. Congresswoman Spartz has a background as a very serious financial professional for one of the largest accounting firms in the world. She has consistently railed against the irresponsible spending of Congress. Congresswoman Spartz has currently withheld her support for House Speaker Mike Johnson, and she joins us now. Congresswoman, tell me at first, what is broken with Congress that you think we can reasonably fix in the 119th?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me, Matt. We'll miss you in Congress. You're a real fighter in the trenches. But you know very well, it's all about the money, right? We can send a lot of letters to FBIs and can tell how bad they are, but until we get them to the table, put them on the menu, and start authorizing spending properly, until we as a Congress start withholding some of the money from some of these corrupt agencies, nothing is going to change. It's the same business as usual, been for a quarter of a century, and countries going bankrupt, and a lot of special interest groups are getting very rich.
Indeed. Now, we just had Congresswoman Lauren Boebert break news on the program. She said that if Mike Johnson selects Chip Roy of Texas, a fellow fiscal hawk of yours and of mine, that would secure the votes for Johnson to assume the speakership. Is it that easy? Is it trading the rules chairmanship to Chip Roy in exchange for Mike Johnson becoming speaker?
No, listen, I think Chip has concerns. Rules Committee is important, but honestly, we need to have structures, Matt. We need to have some structures to help Congress to do some things. You know, if we're going to have the same circus with different clowns, it's not going to change. You know, we cannot put lipstick on a pig. We need to have some unbiased professional, independent, that not bought by Washington, D.C. machine, help good people like Chip, you know, like Thomas and some other ones that care about this country and spending to actually dig in and get us out of the mess, at least incrementally. And it will take some professional staff, not people here that are trying to get a job for lobbying firm and at the age of 25 or 27 make $500,000, you know, try to lobby more of our money to them. I mean, this is the reality. So I think we have to have some structural changes, at least to get out of this mess.
You're so right about that. And we're hearing your name among the people who are currently holding out and not offering support to Mike Johnson. Are you talking to Speaker Johnson now? Are you communicating with him about those very important structural changes that you'd like to see in the House of Representatives?
I had the meeting with him early, and he has some meetings right now with some other members that are very concerned. And, you know, we're going to regroup over late and see if we can figure out before tomorrow. But I think if he wants to have, you know, the speakership tomorrow, he needs to commit to some real changes. And these changes needs to be shared with the public, and they need to be on paper. Are they in rules in some other way? It's not just promises. If you remember, Kevin did a lot of promises, but then he forgot what promises were and the change, you know, when they meet him another time. So I'm sick and tired of these promises, and it's been done already for a very long time by many speakers, including by this speaker too. The promises that he did, you know, when he wanted to become a speaker didn't come to fruition. He had a lot of excuses, but ultimately we have to govern. We have both branches, and we have Senate and the House. We have no excuse. If we don't deliver, we're going to fail, and Marxists are going to win, and we're going to lose the House.
Congresswoman, that's the auditor coming out on you. If it's not in writing, it didn't count, and it didn't happen. We want to see those deals. We want to see them in writing, and we wanted to democratize the House of Representatives to unlock the potential of so many of the members. As we're having this discussion, do you believe Mike Johnson right now has the votes to become House Speaker tomorrow?
I do not believe so. I cannot speak on behalf of other members, but ultimately, you know, he would have a hard time to become a speaker as of this point. So I'm not sure what other conversations are. So I think hopefully he will become more, you know, determined to have some country changes. And honestly, even Kevin McCarthy did some changes that he agreed to, you know, and they were put in the Rules Committee. He's changing now. As you know, the rules is going to be only, you'll have to have 9 people, and it's very hard to find 9 souls there that are going to be standing up and doing that. So that's, you can see that oversight is not going to be effective, and that's a concern with a lot of members. As soon as that rule is going to change, you will have no accountability and pressure on the speaker to actually deliver on the promises that President Trump, you know, had for American people. And as you know, if these promises are not in the law, you saw what's happened. They slow-walked all his executive orders, and in 4 years it gotten even worse. So it has to get through Congress, and Congress needs to have the backbone to help President Trump to have great future for America, not just for 4 years, but at least for the next 40 years.
Backbone can sometimes be in short supply in the halls of Congress, but you certainly have plenty of it for all of them. Give us a sneak preview. Tomorrow, they call the name Sparts. You stand up. Who are you voting for?
As of right now, I haven't decided about that vote. I want to give Speaker Johnson a chance. I understand that President Trump wants to make sure that we go through certification and inauguration, and I have no doubt we will. But Speaker Johnson needs to commit to govern and deliver on this agenda that is very important for American people. So as of right now, if we don't have concrete commitment from Speaker Johnson, I'm not going to be supporting him tomorrow, but I'm open-minded. I'm going to talk to some other members, and hopefully we'll connect with him later tonight or tomorrow morning and figure out if we can actually make real changes in this institution.
It sounds like power is up for grabs, and you are holding it to account. We hope that you're able to get those changes to the House of Representatives that put downward pressure on the spending you've been fighting against your entire congressional career. Thank you so much for your fierce independence. The great Congresswoman from Indiana, Victoria Spartz. Appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you.
And next, the Uniparty's favorite theater kid, Liz Cheney, awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal alongside Mississippi's Benny Thompson for their stellar performances gaslighting the nation on the January 6th Congressional Committee. Coming up after the break. Welcome back. President Biden awarded former Congresswoman Liz Cheney and Congressman Benny Thompson the Presidential Citizens Medal in a White House ceremony today. Liz Cheney is our swamp rat of the day. Liz didn't win the highest award a president can bestow. That would be the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which President Trump awarded to Congressman Jim Jordan and Devin Nunes for exposing the Russia hoax. No, today Liz and Benny did not get the gold medal of presidential accolades. Instead, something less. This must have been devastating. Can you imagine being Liz Cheney and you get the call, and after being thrown out by your own voters, after being exposed as a witness tamperer, after being the Benedict Arnold of the Republican Party, Liz Cheney's Biden send-off is the silver medal of presidential awards. It's one step above like the Threat to Democracy Participation Trophy. Sorry, Liz, no Presidential Medal of Freedom for you. This is basically the politics version of winning the Golden Globe and not even being nominated for the Academy Award. Maybe an investigation for witness tampering by Pam Bondi's Department of Justice comes next for Liz Cheney, following her disgraced service on the January 6th committee. Before you go, maybe some of you will recall I was elected to the 119th Congress that is being sworn in tomorrow. Who knows, maybe I'll go. Then America saw the big election victory, the art of the comeback from President Donald J. Trump. Now, history will remember this as the greatest political triumph in America since the end of the Civil War. President Trump both honored and surprised me by asking me to serve as his Attorney General, and I would have used this position to effectuate the largest deportation in American history, end the weaponization of our government, keep America safe, secure elections, and end the censorship industrial complex that is actually the greatest threat to our democracy. President Trump has been a victim of this censorship. He knows that a healthy republic cannot survive if deplatforming rather than robust debate resolves our differences. Differences are okay. They make for healthy social media banter at times. But remember, it's the left that believes that differences warrant exclusion and repression. It's a far cry from the joy they promised. Turns out in the chest cavity of every woke-topian actually beats the heart of a cancel culture tyrant. So let's talk about the current moment. It's not enough merely to stop censorship going forward. The massive censorship that occurred during the Biden administration must be remediated. It must be undone. That's why I'm here at One America News. Those who've been ripped from the digital world must get the freedom of reach to animate our values around freedom of speech. Here at OAN, we were taken off the airwaves unfairly for sinister reasons, and Trump's return must parallel OAN's return, and I'm proud to be here to lead that effort. So things didn't work out to become Attorney General, but my fight for these important issues continues with the incredible team here at One America News. And every night at 9 o'clock Eastern, I'm bringing all of you with me on that journey into the halls and back rooms and minds of various levels of competence where every key decision is taking us. I will expose which special interests are compromising your elected leaders through campaign donations, and sometimes even worse. We'll follow the stock trades of lawmakers and the moves of the Trump administration. I know these people. I have served with them. I have been on the front lines of the MAGA revolution with all the key players in the Trump White House and throughout the administration. The only place I'm sharing this perspective nightly is here on One America News, because OAN has been in the trenches with some of the most detailed investigative reporting, expert analysis, and all the inside scoops. I was known as a feisty, hard-charging congressman, and it's only right that I'm joining a feisty, hard-charging news network. What I was most known for in Congress was grilling members of the Biden administration, sometimes even the wayward members of the Trump administration. Remember James Comey and Jeff Sessions and Rod Rosenstein? It's like a nightmare to think about, like a bad first marriage. But pressure was needed. And after January 20th, when Trump is sworn in, I am expecting this Trump administration to need far less grilling. It's going to be so much better, with Trump running a historically successful transition. And I have decided to take my talents where they are most useful in this time, to give you the real story, the inside information right here on One America News. And OAN has never wavered. We will make this channel a juggernaut that cannot be ignored. That's all the time we have. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 o'clock Eastern. Stay right here. The Fine Point with Chanel Rion is up next. Let's go get them.